We ended up yesterday, right, with the limits of literalism. Was it like we were coming to the problems with literalism? Hello, Blasphemous. How are you doing today? The text started coming to like it is kind of following, right? We were saying that the other day. It's following the hourglass model, right? We started wide and then started moving in and in and in and in to the specific ideas, and here comes the 4 specific problems that the text wanted to point out. The first one was that the self can never know what lies beyond the reach of its space, which is kind of weird. That's kind of a summation of the entire text. That everything within the self's experience is stuck in the self. Right? And what was the thing again, right? Was this about the causality thing? No, it was, yeah. Yeah, spatio-temporal. Yeah, saying that the literalist assumes that that reality is spatio-temporal, which I just disagreed with in general, right? That people don't necessarily have to like scientism or whatever. Some of them rejects the idea that the universe is spatial and temporal. I don't know. Lasma says spatial temura. What is that? I don't know the reference. I'm bad with names? I don't know. Alright, and that's... I mean, that is... I don't see this as a problem. I think it's worth pointing out that the self can never know what's outside. Something interesting that I thought about, though, is that we can, like, in cooperation and communication with others, and by ourselves as well. It doesn't have to be with cooperation. We have these limits, these borders that we cannot move beyond, but they are bendable. Yeah, they are bendable, right? Because the text has been talking about the last 500 years, and an experience that was not in human reality was flying an airplane like 500 years ago. I don't know if that was in the realm of possibility, but that is something that we have now. And you can do, like, yeah, your own self, your own boundaries of your experience, like literally as you move, as you get the feeling of moving through space and time, you also generate memories and knowledge, whatever the hell that is. And it grows in different directions, right? You learn new experiences, new skills, and new everything. So the limits, I don't think are... I think they are vague. And they are also not, right? There's not a border, but there are like many different directions you can go with experience, and they all have their own borders, so to speak. So it's not, yeah, it's not one border, it's many different experiences. I think. Yeah, the physicalist is meter reading. Yeah, we're stuck with meter readings. Which is... yeah, that's the methodology of the physicalist, while the mental... no. The spiritualist is probably the other thing, right? where it's all within the mind, the mindist, I don't know. They're also stuck with their meter reading, like their internal, their internal ideas and emotions and experiences. That's the whole point, which makes this last bit was this the frustrating thing? The problems that the physicalist thinkers endeavor to solve, such as the relation between mental and physical phenomena, are implicitly founded upon literal logic that has been discovered by the same science they uphold to be incompatible with objective reality. Yeah, incompatible with getting an understanding of objective reality, right? It's not incompatible with the idea that an objective reality exists. It's just incompatible with the idea that we can know said objective reality. Which, yeah, that's skepticism, and that's fairly accepted as far as I understand. Like, not a lot of people would, like, just deny skepticism. For reference, what is the whole general idea of skepticism? Alright, it is generally a questioning attitude or doubt towards one or more putative instances of knowledge which are asserted to be mere belief or dogma. Formally, skepticism is a topic of interest in philosophy, particularly in epistemology. More informally, skepticism is an expression of questioning or doubt and can be applied to any topic such as politics, religion, or pseudoscience. It is often applied within restricted domains such as morality, moral skepticism, theism, skepticism about the existence of God or the supernatural. Here we go. Philosophical skepticism comes in various forms. Radical forms of philosophical skepticism deny that knowledge or rational beliefs is possible and urges to suspend judgment on many or all controversial matters. That's a bit extreme. More moderate forms of philosophical skepticism claim only that nothing can be known with certainty, or that we can know little or nothing about non-empirical matters, such as whether God exists, whether humans have free will, or whether there is an afterlife. Right, my idea of skepticism is how I've been using it in this context is that we don't know, right? We don't know, right? If you take a very literal and hard line, it's subjectivism, right? Like, what is knowledge? I don't fucking know. There is, like, objectively we don't have the frame of reference to say any of these things with absolute certainty. That's why science is a pragmatic field, right? Because it's, well, this seems to be working, so let's make this assumption. Philosophy as well. Right? When you go into epistemology, you have to do that, right? Well, this seems to make a lot of sense. That's what we do, right? With science and everything. This seems to make a lot of sense. This one I had major problems with. Like, so this one I agree with this as a problem of philosophy, but it's also not a catastrophical problem. Especially with a pragmatist point of view. Pragmatic point of view, maybe. Right. And the second point was the literal self cannot know what lies beyond spatial representation. It is incapable of grasping the cause of its experience in what it calls time. Yeah. I completely disagree with this as a problem. Because just because we cannot grasp a thing doesn't mean that we cannot make inference and logic and intellectualize about said idea. Just because you mentally can't wrap your head around an idea doesn't mean you cannot like experience the idea. I mean, I have no idea how it would feel to travel back through time or become spaghettified by a black hole. I can't grasp what that experience would be like, but that does not mean that I cannot talk about it or intellectualize it, right? It's two different forms of, like, we're talking about completely different things. That makes sense? Yeah, I think that... Right. Yeah, I was talking about that causality is a miracle and time and space is a miracle. Alright. But however the miracle is framed, a miracle remains the only way for literalists to explain or accept the incoherent absurdity at the heart of both standard modern theism and standard modern atheism, that causelessness is causality. Alright, and that... Right. I could see arguments. I don't have sufficient knowledge to make up my mind about this, right? I have no... Well, I'm not a religious person, but like the monotheists... Yeah, that's where we stopped off, right? I argued that a monotheist could just say that, no, God is causality, and that's... Then causelessness did not cause causality, then God created, like, is, and caused causality. Or, right, this text also forgets about the rejection of causality, which a lot of people do. Yeah, a lot of people reject causality. I'm not one of them. Right? And in a lot of science, right, they reject time and space. And if you reject temporality, then stuff that was before is a meaningless statement. Like, before the universe, that's not a thing. From my understanding of different views of the Big Bang Theory. One could argue that the universe caused itself. I don't know. I don't like implying a prime mover. Yeah, I don't like doing that. Because I don't know. And I'm pretty sure whoever this author is don't know these things. Like, there's a lot of... The text is taking liberties. Yeah. The text is taking liberties about saying what other people believe, and it's... I can imagine people thinking other stuff than this text kind of says that they have to think. It bothers me, yeah. Alright, but let's look at the third problem of literalism. Literalism cannot explain the cause of experience, or what it calls consciousness. Can't it? I mean, it can't right now. Maybe it can in the future. I don't know. For the literalist, consciousness somehow emerged from non-consciousness. I've heard argument for the primacy of consciousness. Yeah, I remember seeing... there's a YouTube video that's specifically called that, I'm pretty sure. Primacy of consciousness. No, that's not it. Primacy of consciousness. Yeah, this one. I saw this one 10 years ago. Oh man, I haven't seen this in a long time. I remember why I like this though. His voice is amazing. Just listen. Just listen to this. Alright, let's...
By whatever's happening in the projector to take on a particular form. But the form is just sculpted light.
I love listening to this.
Basically, it's just sculpted light. which we see on the screen. And that light...
I think I'm gonna rewatch this. I haven't watched this in years and years and years. But here we go. This is a materialist argument for a different view of consciousness. He's arguing that consciousness is primary. It did not emerge from non-consciousness. It's an argument that consciousness... It's not even a subjectivist argument. It's... Again, it was a long time ago, but from my memory, I think the argument was a materialistic one. Yeah, that material, like matter, is conscious. Like it is consciousness. That the universe is conscious somehow, right? So, this is an argument, right? It all, like, I think the scope of this text has become, that's a problem, right? Because it says that everything is literalism, which gives me free rein to criticize however the fuck I want. Right? Literalism cannot explain the cause of experience? Sure. Or what it calls consciousness. And then, right, the text says that literalism is everything, and then the literalist cherry pick, right, an idea. Like, this is an idea, right? That's the hard problem of consciousness. Yeah, there's... Wait. No. I'm thinking of AI. Yeah, but that's one problem in philosophy, psychology philosophy specifically, right? That how can consciousness emerge from unconsciousness? Unconscious rock and amoeba, paleontology, and conscious adults somehow emerge from unconscious chromosomes and embryos alright. My idea, right? My guess, like that's just my speculation, is that pretty much we had water moving and they created a membrane that trapped sunlight, heat, whatever, right? And the sunlight heat bounced around and made the membrane move. Like membrane, like a skin, right? It trapped heat energy or whatever, and then it bounced around inside it, and that caused movement. And from there, you just have evolution, and voila, you have life. That's my idea. That's speculation. Yeah, philosophical speculation. So, from my point of view, yeah, sure, the rock and the membrane might be unconscious. But, I mean, movement, right? Actually, I don't know how the light or heat would be conscious. I don't know, right? Yeah. Maybe it has intent. Maybe it was emerged. It just emerged from that marriage. I have no idea, but I just reject the idea that it's impossible, right? Just because something cannot be explained, which I concede, right? I'm pretty sure that there is no agreed upon description how this happened. Yeah, I think this is probably still a philosophical problem, and science don't have an answer for it. Just because science doesn't have an answer for something doesn't say that it's impossible, right? There's a lot of things that science cannot answer, like a lot of things. I think there are way more things that science probably cannot answer than it well, that it has not answered yet than questions that it has answered. Blasphemous asks, what interests you about this? Metaphysics. Yeah, I like metaphysics. I like philosophy, right? That's... And I'm interested in consciousness as well, right? I've studied psychology, I've studied philosophy. But we talk a lot of politics, right? We've been talking a lot of politics over the months. But my basis for my politics comes from an interest in metaphysics, rather, right? How does the world work? And it's, my interest is building my own metaphysical model of the world. And this text has actually helped me improve my idea, because I think before this text my ideas were vague, right? A metaphysical model, I didn't really have a structured metaphysical model in my mind. But I think that, like, the idea I had was very dualistic. Like, Kantian dualism. Not... Yeah, Kantian dualism. I think that's pretty much the idea I had. Now, not so much. I like the idea of just... Yeah, you know, what I've been talking about, right? Having borders of possible experience and... Yeah. And we have borders in different directions, and they all can be expanded. Like the psychonauts expanding... Like, I don't know, spiritual ideas? No, just the limits within, right? And there are different limits for different things, I guess. And like scientists exploring epistemological borders and whatnot. Athletes expanding on like what physically can be experienced and achieved. Those achievements are experiences, right? And I like that, yeah, it's a spectrum of possible experience that we build and make bigger. And that is one part of reality, and it's just a part of reality. So it's not only that we have subconscious that way and objective reality that way. It's multidimensional and multifactorial, and we have different things in all different kinds of perspectives, directions. While I think it's easy to look at. Yeah. And I think the dualism comes from the human-centric, the self-centric worldview, right? Right. It is me and it is outside of me. I think, and that is what I'm talking about, right? Within me, there are all these different directions I can go, but all that things exists within reality. I don't think living things are in the center of reality. It's just part of it. And my experience, of course, comes from my point of view. I don't know, that felt more like a rant than an actual answer to the question, what interests you about this? It's just a philosophy. I'm interested in philosophy. I like philosophy. Alright. Let's go. But again, actually, that's another thing. Like experience, we can explain, like we can set up borders of science or borders of... Like you can create a scope and you can explain experience from within a scope, right? I can say if I take a hammer and hit you on your toe, I'm gonna say that you experience pain, and within my frame of reference, the hammer against the toe was the cause of this pain, right? So if you move around your frames of reference, you can explain the causes of many different experiences. But that's not my understanding of what the text is about. Yeah. It's more metaphysical than that, right? It's what is reality is what this text is about. Well, that's my interpretation of the text. What is reality? And what can we know about it? Alright. But again, there is no way to even think about how this could happen. How something non-experiential can possibly generate experience. Or alternatively, how quantitative can generate quality. Quantity generate quality, without reducing the latter to the former. Right? And that's quite interesting, because the world, like the metaphysical model that I have extracted from this, says that both quantity, quality, both experience and non-experience is part of reality. That's... And that is thinking about that, right? Thinking about how this could happen. That it's the example I gave before, right? It could give rise. Right? Emergence is a real thing, right? Stuff emerge. Pretty sure. Emergence. Emergence occurs when an entity is observed to have properties its parts do not have on their own. Properties or behaviors which emerge only when its parts interact in a wider whole. Yeah. Like the game of life and stuff like that. Nice. Node says that Gen 2 emerges. Exactly, right? Right, you can emerge an desktop environment from the Unix philosophy, right? Not any of the, like, if you have a lot of programs following the Unix philosophy, you don't have a single program that does a thing, but when you put them together in an amalgamation, it emerges some functions from it. That's like, from my perspective, that is the benefit of the Unix philosophy. And that you can have this, like, this one thing does this thing great, and then I take this one thing that does that one thing great, and I just put them together, and it emerges a functionality that fits my needs. I mean, that's within our experience. That is a thing. And that new functionality that is created by the coupling of those two, you don't have to reduce the latter to the former, right? That functionality is there. Right. The text continues. We can imagine and so predict how sand dunes can emerge. Oh, look at that. It actually, yeah. How sand dunes can emerge from sand. Or ice from water. Or ecological breakdown from human activity. Yeah, imagine and predict. Yeah, and that is from within the literalist point of view, from...
Take a deep breath, Hardigan. Settle down and think straight.
Yeah, it's from the point of view of us. Yeah. Alright, there is something quantitatively detectable in the latter which conceivably or scientifically leads to the former. Dunes leads to sand? Is that... conceivably dunes lead to sand. But I mean, you can probably make dunes without sand. And you can probably make a salt dune, right? Make a beach out of just salt. And then by wind and whatever, the dune still emerges. Right? It is not dependent on sand. I mean, like, that's just thought experimental, right? You just need something with the similar properties to sand, being small and being moved around with wind, like tiny rocks. Tiny rocks. That's all you need. Give him a moment. I hear the cat. He sounds like he's not happy. I'm just gonna go check why. Back. Alright, I think he had a nightmare. Maybe. Blasphemous. I never knew freeze-dried food tasted that good. Yeah, you trying it out as well? Tasty stuff, eh? What did you try out, Blasphemous? Biscuits and gravy. Freeze-dried biscuits? That sounds weird. Isn't biscuits kind of dry to begin with? Like, biscuits are like cookies, right? No? In gravy, you got a powder that you just did the water thing? Blasphemous. I got way more food for my money than I would have buying the one from my frozen food sections at the grocery store. Oh, that's interesting. I remember Nodrunner talking about freeze-dried food were more expensive. Was it because you bought in bulk? That sounds great if the freeze-dried is not more expensive than that. Blasphemous says no. Oh, it was just cheaper. I like that. More food for less money? That sounds like a good thing to have, yeah. Alright. Text continues, but there is nothing in non-experience. Wait, but there is nothing in non-experience that conceivably lead to the experience or predicting its emergence. I'm confused. Why is the text saying this? What I understand is that stuff that is in non-experience we cannot know anything about. So the conceivably lead, right? There's nothing in non-experience that can conceivably lead to experience or predict its emergence, right? But that's the thing though, non-experience, from the text's own words, cannot be known by the self. So how can you talk about anything conceivably about non-experience? And I guess actually that is probably an answer that... Right, if we're thinking about just emerging consciousness from a collection of things, that's the whole thing about the hard problem of AI, right? Can we create an AI that actually experiences stuff? Like the emergence of consciousness, that type of awareness of its surrounding. Well, and we would need sentience, right? Because we can mimic the behavior of many different things, but that would require sentience for the AI to tell us so. And that should, right, just like I was saying that we can get dunes from salt. If consciousness can emerge, then that would be an answer to this question, right? That can it emerge from just a good old regular matter? Just stones? Just electrifying stones? Can it emerge from that, right? It kind of feels like the argument the text is making is just because I don't know, it is impossible, which is a weird argument to make. Let's see. Blasphemous, everything where I live is a ripoff, lol. Oh, that doesn't sound like fun at all. It's that kind of the thing of, I don't know whether to cry or to laugh, and you prefer laughing. Yeah, I think it's probably a good idea to laugh. Blasphemous, are you sure we haven't already? Wait, the AI thing? Actually, I've heard a lot of people talk about the internet as if having consciousness, awareness, intent and whatnot. I've heard that in many different situations. If you formalize those ideas, it becomes something like that. Well, it's kind of not that the internet is conscious, it's more like the similarity between the human body and the human society. Right? The human body have a lot of cells that intertwine and do their own thing, that are connected by an electrochemical signal, right? They send signals back and forth that works together to achieve a certain goal. And that's kind of society, right? Or with the internet in this this metaphor, thought experiment, I don't know, where internet is just electrical signals between humans, which are the cells in this imaginary body. Like, maybe it can emerge like a hive mind thing. I mean, we've seen hive mind stuff. Hive minds emerge. Maybe? Blasphemous says, we won't know about a lot of the advanced tech for a while. Yes, well, yeah. That is how it works, unfortunately. Yeah. I think, yeah, my political opinion on that is like, yeah, just make it all in the public domain. All the information in the public domain. You have to publish your knowledge. I think that would be... I mean, I think it would be destabilizing, like if we just make a switch like that. But in general, I think that would lead to a... like long-term to a society that I would consider improved. More happiness, more... yeah, less suffering. Yeah, less suffering. Yeah, I would, like... If you told me that a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, I don't remember, I would have said, sure, there's a lot of advanced tech that we won't know, but there's also, like, I would have thought we weren't that far behind. Like, in the public knowledge, that the public knowledge wouldn't be that far behind. Now, like, since the GPT-3 debacle, right? Since they just closed sourced that from a company that, well, from an organization that is called OpenAI, where the whole point was that it was supposed to be open source, and they just closed off the source. Like, if they do that with the specific intent not to do that, then I can imagine that a lot of other stuff that people find, they are afraid of and just will not publish for a long time. Also, knowledge is power, right? And people like holding on to power when they have it. Blasphemous. I bet you've never heard of this. ID Air's new fingerprints reader captures prints from 6 meters away. Wow. I had never heard of it, no. I'm also not surprised that it's a thing. Yeah. It's just a sophisticated camera, right? With a high resolution where that can see fingerprints. And a fairly simple AI, right? That to detect fingerprints. We have that detects faces, so fingerprints doesn't surprise me either. So yeah, I hadn't heard about it before, but it doesn't surprise me, and it's not significantly advanced, right? I think there are, and I guess, like, even though we don't know about the advanced tech, I think a lot of it can be implied, right? Blasphemous, it's almost a decade old. Right, you can imply that, right? From how AI looked a decade ago and how cameras looked a decade ago. You could infer. That's what it's called, right? You could infer that is going to be a thing. Like a camera that is so good that it can take fingerprints from 6 meters away. Right? It wouldn't surprise me 10 years ago either, right? That would be a thing. The stuff that's interesting is the advanced tech that is not predictable at the moment. A lot of the stuff like that goes on within Google and military labs, right? A lot of tech, or Amazon. There's a lot of stuff that they figure out there that it's just probably very cool. I don't know. Blasphemous says, I miss Stephen Rambam's lectures from Hope Conference. He quit because their politics got all nutty. From his perspective, yeah. He quit because he did not agree with their politics, not because the politics got nutty. He quit because he disagreed with the politics. Right? If it got nutty and he agreed with them, he wouldn't have quit. I don't even know who Steve Rambam is. Steve Rambam? Nazi hunter Steve Rambam? The real life of a private investigator? Oh. Is that it? And if you recommend that, that kind of sounds like fun. The real life of a private investigator. I might look into that. The Art of Charm? That sounds weird. That's a little too much. Qualitative consciousness emerging from quantitative matter. That's the mistake, right? Qualitative is a human, that idea is human-centric, right? That's from within experience, again. Qualitative and quantitative. Right? The author gets stuck in the same bind, like theism, atheism, dualism, monism, qualitative, quantitative, right? And the text falls into that very same trap that it's supposedly arguing against. Plasma says, I've only watched his Hope Conference lectures. Alright. Privacy, anonymity, individuality, the final battle begins, HQ. Wow. I guess that's a Pokemon reference. The final battle begins. I mean, final, right? That's an extreme. I mean, if it's just a Pokemon reference, I can get it. But if you actually believe that the final battle for privacy, anonymity, and individuality, that the final battle begins, that's a failure of imagination. Yeah. That's a very short-sighted idea, right? How will the world look in 50 years or 100 years? I mean, I don't fucking know. Right? There might be another battle 1,000 years from now, right? But I think it's probably, since it's using battle, it's probably a Pokemon reference. Since it seems like that's what it's talking about. Blasphemous says, we've pretty much lost that war already. Right? Yeah. Actually, if you do it as a metaphor as war, yeah. Privacy, I don't know. Privacy is still fine. Anonymity, one could argue that it depends on what view you do. An individuality. Like our societies and like yours and my culture is hyper focused on individuality compared to, like, look at China, right? They are super collectivist compared to the individualistic attitudes of Europe and European ideas. Privacy is dead. Online privacy, right? I mean, I can take all my technology out from here and I can have privacy in my own home, right? There is, like, it's not dead, it's just I can have privacy if I want to. Yeah. I had to think for a moment, but I can have privacy if I want to. It's just, it takes a little bit of work. Plasma says, I've yet to meet one other person that puts even half the effort I do. You wouldn't meet that person, right? Because the people, they're very private and anonymous. So meeting them would be difficult indeed. Oh, but I get your point, right? I'm saying that for me to say that privacy is dead, that would be if I couldn't, right? Think 1984. If I took all the cameras out of my home, all the microphones, right? Let's say I removed all of them from my home. And then the government would come knocking and reinstall cameras and microphones. Then I would agree with you. But that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. Yeah. Blasphemous if you don't leave your home. Yeah, right. Where else would you have privacy but your home? Where would you want privacy? Like out and about in society? That makes sense to me that privacy is disappearing more and more from that. I don't like it necessarily, right? I don't like CCTV being everywhere. I don't like people looking at me. But it makes some sense as well, I guess. Blasphemous, you can't even hide in your house? I wasn't talking about hiding, I was talking about having privacy, right? Private time. What I do in the privacy of my own home is my business, right? What I do in my home is, well, as long as there's no murdering of other people, but that's outside of the house, right? Blasphemous is even with everything removed. Nobody needs to put anything inside your home. Someone could stick 2 Wi-Fi routers outside your apartment and identify you easily. Wi-Fi routers. Yeah, people could have like microphones, those things that listen in on my conversations from outside. It is possible, right? But it doesn't happen. I mean, no microphones? I mean, if you're outside of the apartment and I close the blinds and whatever, you would need like a camera with like heat, like to see what I am doing, and you need microphones to listen to what I'm doing. A Wi-Fi router does none of those things, right? People can be identified with Wi-Fi signals. Yeah. Identity, right? We're talking about privacy, what I am doing in my home, right? People will know, right, that I'm in my home, right? That knowledge. People will know that I am in my home and that I'm doing stuff in my home. What I'm saying is that the privacy I have is that they don't know and cannot tell me what to do in my home, right? That's privacy. I have my privacy. I do what I want. I mean, you don't need a Wi-Fi signal to identify that I am in my home, right? That you can just use the CCTV that is fucking well, not here in where I live, but like in cities and whatnot, right? You could just follow people and just see where they go, or track their phones, see where they go, and just know that people are in their home. Well, I would have chucked the phone out, right? If I wanted people not to listen. Or put them in a Faraday cage or whatever, right? Blasphemous, I'm looking for the link. Wait, what link? But like, even if like you look at this as a war, right? It's not the final war to end all wars, right? That people have been talking about that for years, the final war to end all wars, but did it end all wars? No. Just like the battles for privacy and as long as people want these things, the war will never be over. Right? As long as people, well, actually, as long as people are prepared to fight for these things, then the war will never be over. Right? So there is no final battle. Well, I guess That would be a form of genocide if that happened. Like, that is not happening, right? No one is trying to kill you for trying to be private or anonymous. That doesn't happen. Yet. Anyways. I'm not saying that it won't in the future, I'm just saying that we're far away from the final battle. All those people would have to be murdered. Nobody said a literal war. No, but that... I'm just saying that is what it would take for the final battle, right? To have a final battle, it would take a literal war. Yeah. Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily. It would only take nobody disagreeing and not being prepared to fight this thing. And if that happens, right? Isn't everybody happy? If no one care enough to fight for these things anymore, aren't they just happy? That would be a final battle as well, right? Like there is one in... Unless, assuming that civilization continues on the current path and does not collapse or whatever, I can see a final battle against organized religions, right? That religions all of the world are becoming secular because that just makes sense. Because everybody's just convinced that, well, sure, I mean, the religious books can be helpful and could be read and everything, but it's just some person who wrote some words. Yeah, it was just a person writing some words, and they don't have the authority. I can see that in the future. What is this? New tech can see through walls and ID people by the way they walk. Yeah. That's what I said, right? You need... I was saying heat cameras, but there's probably other ways to do it, yeah. Yeah, gait recognition, I've heard about that before. Radio frequency to create a surveillance system that can see behind walls. Oh, radio frequencies. That's interesting. Can you bounce off radio frequencies off people inside walls? That's kind of cool. This is done with Wi-Fi. So it is a type of camera then. Bank robber caught on a video surveillance system. The suspect faced obscures, walked calmly. Alright, yeah. The gate. Yeah. A proposed approach makes it possible to determine if the person is behind the wall is the same as the one in the video footage, using only a pair of the off-the-shelf Wi-Fi transceivers outside. Huh. Bounce. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It creates a 3D map with Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi being used as a three-dimensional camera, right? That is... No. It's not three-dimensional, but it's like a camera, yeah. 3D that you don't have to point it a specific direction, it just do it in omnidirectional. It does it in all directions, yeah. Yeah, of course, the ripples. Of course you can use that as a camera. I didn't think about that. Huh. Oh, that was cool. Yeah, and as long as you keep a Wi-Fi in your home... Yeah, so you would have to, right? If you want to... Oh, right, someone can put a... But it's the same, like, it's the same argument, like, with the camera and the microphones and the Wi-Fi outside of your home. Right? That doesn't happen. Not yet, anyway. Not yet. Surveillance in people's homes. Usually they just, I guess, use the Wi-Fi that I already have in my home. But I can opt out of that. Blasphemous says almost everyone has one? Yeah. And most are running on proprietary software. Yeah. I saw a video on that a few days ago. I'm not gonna have my router run on proprietary software. Yeah. I hadn't even thought about that before I saw that video, right? Oh, of course I want open source software on my router. That makes a lot of sense. I'm not even sure I'm gonna have Wi-Fi in my router. I mean, I don't mind having cables around. I'll probably have Wi-Fi. It's too useful. Yeah. For the laptops and whatnot. Blasphemous says, and eventually many of them will not have software updates if the owner even runs the updates. Yeah. I mean, eventually all of them will stop having software updates. What's the nature of time? Everything ends. Well, these things will end. Software updates will definitely end for all the things. Sooner or later. Alright, qualitative consciousness emerging from quantitative matter is as feasible as language emerging from biscuits. This is just rude text, right? It's just a rude statement. It's not an argument. It's just pathos. Yeah, this is pathos. This is just fancy rhetorics. Doesn't mean anything. It is not merely amazing that it happened, the so-called argument from incredulity, which physicalists are very eager to dismiss, but impossible to imagine that it could happen, at least causally. I mean, it's not impossible, right? We have imagined it. If we didn't imagine it, if we hadn't imagined it, then even then it might not be impossible, then it just hasn't happened yet, right? So the literalist just says, God did it.
No way to put oxygen masks on planes so you can breathe. Oxygen gets you high.
Right, so the literalist just says God did it, or these days, emergentism did it, which amounts to the same thing. Alright, and that's where I completely disagree with the point of view of this text. Again, right? Like, I would say that, like, the religious people can say God is it, not God did it. Or they can say God did it, which I don't know if that makes sense. Or maybe it just is, right? It's, I don't know. And the same thing with emergentism did it, right? No. Wait, what was I thinking? Right? The literalist can say, I don't know. Where is that? The I don't know. Isn't all these questions and all these theories and hypotheses, they are generated because I don't know. Right? I have ideas, but I don't know. If I did know and felt certain that I did know, then right, I would use said knowledge to convince people, but that hasn't happened, right? I mean, the emergentism did it. That's not... It's not... Like, I think more people would say God did it than emergentism did it, right? And I would say that a lot of people would probably say emergentism maybe did it? Yeah, maybe. Blasphemous, and people are beginning to have more and more devices in their homes connected to their Wi-Fi. And these devices also will not be updated for long. Sure, yeah. That does not mean the end of privacy. That is up to these people, right? To do that thing. For these people, privacy doesn't matter, right? Oh, I guess that is the end. Like, when everybody's convinced and don't care anymore about privacy. Well, not when. If we will end up in a future where people just don't care about privacy, anonymity, individuality, I don't know about that. That feels like that feels like a separate thing, but... Right. Yeah, that would be the end of privacy, when nobody longer cares about privacy. Let's see... Blasphemous. If you even have those devices in your home, you don't care. Well, that's not for you to decide what someone cares about or don't care about. Like, I care a little bit about privacy, and I mean, I have stuff that what's that called? I violate my own privacy. Like, that is something that happens in my life. I have the feeling and I care that I myself violate my own privacy, right? I have this phone right here and I care. I find that frustrating. Just because I have the phone doesn't mean I don't care. And it's not up to you to decide if I care or not. It's up to me, yeah. Blasphemous, I'm pointing out how foolish they are to do so. Yeah, I would agree that me having the phone right there, that's kind of foolish, yeah. But that's because I care. If they don't care, it's not foolish. Is it? If they don't care? Is it still foolish if they don't care? Blasphemous, those devices will be hacked if they haven't already. Yeah. I can... Sure, that might happen, yeah. Blasphemous, if you find it frustrating, do something about it, yeah. I mean, I will. Not today, not tomorrow. My next phone is gonna be a Pine phone. That's... Yeah. Blasphemous, your actions show if you do care or don't care. Nope, they do not. Yep, nope. Your actions don't show that at all. My caring is an internal thing. Yeah. What I care about or don't care about, yeah, that... My opinions... Like, they don't inform my actions. Yeah. Blasphemous says, therefore I will judge them for it. Yeah, and that's fine. You can judge people and think people are stupid from your point of view, right? And that's... I'm not arguing that at all, right? Right. Facepalm? Your actions show if you do care or don't care? That... Alright. I care about having a home, so I should just buy a house because my actions show that I care about having a home. It's similar logic. isn't it? I mean, and I can care about two different things, right? I have thing here and I have thing here, and I have to value them against each other. Just because I value this one more doesn't mean that I don't value this one at all, that I don't care about this one at all. It just means that I have made a value judgment like this. It doesn't negate me caring about said thing. Plasma says, no, it isn't. Wait. No, it isn't. What isn't? My apologies, I'm missed out. What did I just say? I'm not listening to what I'm saying. Your example sucked? About caring about different things? Or me caring about the phone and not doing anything about it? Oh, right. Sorry. Yeah, completely forgot about that example. I care about having a house, so I should just buy a house. Right? All right, let's say an addict that wants to get clean and stop using said drugs, and then they fall off the wagon. Does them falling off the wagon mean that they don't care about getting clean? That's probably a better example, right? Plasma says they obviously care more about the drug than they do staying sober. There we go. That was my point. Well, there is another point I want to make, because that's what I said, right? There's a value judgment. Just because they value one thing more doesn't mean that they don't care about the other thing, which was your statement. But, right, we're on the same point then. Another point I would add, there are opinions are not the predictors of behaviors. We are emotional creatures. Emotions are predictors of behavior. So, an opinion is an intellectual exercise, right? So, maybe that's your point. Maybe that's our misunderstanding. I am thinking of opinions. You are thinking about emotional caring about a thing. That would explain the misunderstanding. Because if we're talking about emotional caring, then sure, yeah, I agree with you. That, yeah, I don't care enough. That's why I have the phone, because I emotionally don't care enough. Yeah, I don't care enough emotionally. Plasma says emotions are usually just irrational. I mean, emotions are always irrational. Emotions are emotions. Rational thinking is something completely different. That's intellectualizing. That's not emotions. Yeah. Emotions are emotions. Rational thoughts are rational. I've said that a couple of times. I really like that. Emotions don't care about your logic, right? Emotions are, I would probably say, never rational. You can rationalize your emotion and you can explain, right? You can rationalize why you're feeling emotion, but the emotion in itself is not rational. It's just part of what it means to be human, like it's part of our experience. And personally, I wouldn't judge someone for their emotions. Yeah. Or what they care about and don't care about, right? I don't see myself in complete control of my own emotions. They happen to me, just like I would say the people that don't care about privacy. It's... Yeah. Right? Just like your emotions for caring, like you have never met anyone that cares as much as you do. Does that make your emotions rational? No. They're just like irrational like everyone else's. Blasphemous. You either do or do not act irrational over your emotions. Oh! Right. Yes, we were not talking about emotions, we were talking about actions. Sorry. And we tend to act on emotions, which... Yeah. Actions tend to be irrational. Sure. Yeah. You can take a deep breath and think things through with a rational way if you have that type of personality, or if you have learned it, right? And if you have learned it, then you have that type of personality, right? Or you don't. Yeah. Some people do it rationally, others don't. Many times people will not, though. That takes discipline. Yeah. Discipline and personality, right? Sure. I guess that's... I care a little bit, but not enough. And I don't have the discipline. Yeah, I don't have discipline. That's... I don't know if that's... I haven't learned it, or it's not part of my personality. Whatever reason, I don't have discipline. Yeah. And that's, I mean, trying to want all of the world to have discipline, that won't ever happen, right? Blasphemous, does it seem overwhelming to start? Being more private, more privacy focused? I have started. Right? I don't think it feels overwhelming, no. Since, when it comes to your phone, oh, no, right, it's... maybe I hadn't even thought about that. That is not the reason why I haven't, right? What is it called? Flashing your phone? Is that what it's called? When you change operating system on your phone? Do you worry you may break it? No. I mean, a little bit. But that's not, right? Neither of those are not emotions I have. It's more that I'm just not into it, right? You have noticed I get bored of stuff easy and I just don't do it if I don't feel that type of motivation, right? Since I don't have a discipline, I run on that, right? Whatever interests me at the moment. And the reason I haven't done anything with the phone is because it hasn't interested me yet. Like, I was into the Linux and the open source philosophy for years before I actually put it on the computer, because I had the time and interests and motivation to do it. Yeah. I don't run on discipline, like, at all. Yeah. Undisciplined, like, yeah. Gotta look for people if you want to find people more undisciplined than me, yeah. But I mean, sure, it seems a little overwhelming to start, but so does most things, right? So did installing Nix OS on my computer. It still feels a little bit overwhelming, but that's not necessarily an argument for me. And I'm always worried around technology that I will brick it, or like just when I move something, because I have destroyed so many things in my life. Just from being clumsy, like either technologically clumsy? No, just physically clumsy, just dropping stuff and yeah, like wrecking cars and computers and phones and just dropping it and just losing stuff. Yeah. So I think that's probably a constant worry in my life. Lasma says, wrecked a car? Well, sorry, that bad wording from me. Not wrecked. I haven't been in a car crash. No. I have driven in a way that made the car stop functioning. Sorry. No, yeah, not been in a car wreck, no. Just... yeah. That makes sense. Actually, have I been in a car accident? No. No. The closest I've been to a car accident was... oh, that was a traumatic experience. As a kid, we were out driving and we had two cars. Like, we were driving like this. I was in the front car with my mom was driving that. And my dad was driving the other car, and there was like two families. No. My dad was in the other car. He wasn't driving it. No, wait. No, he was driving it. We had been out and about on something or other. And we were out on just dirt road, kinda. And he like just hits a rock and just skids. And we look back and I have a flash. I don't know how constructed that memory is, but I have the memory. If that's real or not, I know that it happened, right? I see the car being upside down in the air. And it slams right into a tree. That was traumatic, yeah. Yeah. Luckily, no one died, yeah. My father had a neck brace for a while after that. And I'm pretty sure one of the persons in the car had to spend the rest of their lives with crutches. Yeah, like a cane, something like that. Alright. This leaves two further puzzles for the literalist. One is how the material mind can cause immaterial consciousness. That is a potential puzzle. That is one framing of said question, but it's not the only framing of the question, so it's... if this indeed is what happens, then that is the puzzle, yeah. But I wouldn't concede that it necessarily is the way, because I don't know, and I would claim that no one else knows enough either to frame the question this way. You might be completely mistaken. Right, and the other is how non-physical consciousness can influence physical matter. Yeah. And the literalist materialist would not end up in this problem at all, because they would say, well, this is not a problem. Non-physical consciousness is not a thing, they would say. Yeah, I think the scope of this text is just all out there. I think that's a problem for the text. Right, the so-called mind-body problem. There we go, the mind-body problem, yeah. And the problem of mental causation are insoluble mysteries for literalists. That's so dumb. Right, we have a mystery that is not solved, therefore it is unsolvable. That is begging the question, isn't it? Wait, actually, that's not... Assuming the conclusion, yeah. We're assuming the conclusion, you say that, oh, they haven't been solved. You assume they are not insoluble. right? Just like 500 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, someone would say, man will, we will never fly a rocket to the moon. That is not doable, someone would say. That's just failure of imagination. There are some stuff that I imagine are unsoluble. These are not examples of those. Yeah. They come up with plenty of theories, yeah, or souls or gods that they think can explain them. But none address the inherent absurdity of the problem, which is why nobody has come anywhere near answering them. The absurdity of the problem? Those answers which are offered are all beg not one but two questions. I wonder if I saw this beg the question and therefore I started talking about begging the questions. I just didn't notice it. Probably got primed into that. Yeah. Alright. The first is what the matter is, and is that mind. Wait. The first is what the matter is that mind is supposed to influence or emerge from, which remains impregnable and untouchable by any kind of literalism. And the second is what the consciousness is that experiences that matter, which is either declared to be a quantitative literal thing like any other literal thing, or to be an epiphenomenal illusion, which is to say to not exist at all. Alright, we were talking about borderline, right, the other day, about borderline just thinking in binary ways. A lot of these examples feels like, yeah, false dichotomies, just thinking that, alright, someone who is into subjectivism can only be into subjectivism. That's the only thing they understand about reality, right? And that is not how people or philosophy work, for that matter. That's not even how this text works, right? This text contradicts itself all the time, and so do subjectivists. Those contradictions are interesting to look at. That doesn't throw away the whole perspective, right? It doesn't invalidate the perspective, right? Quantum mechanics invalidates Newtonian mechanics, one could claim. But that doesn't mean that physicists stop doing Newtonian mechanics, right? Just because quantum mechanics says that matter is mostly empty space and energy and is not really matter, does not invalidate the use of studying matter. And thinking that is... I'm very interested in what the conclusions are and what the response to these things are, right? And so far the text has been very good at... No, it hasn't been very good at tearing stuff down, but that is all it has tried to do. What is the alternative? Right? What is the alternative? I'm very curious about what the alternative will end up being. How much do you want to bet that it just ends? This is all dumb, they say, and then just leave us hanging with, well, just having to throw away language because language can be taken literally. Like, that language might be literal, therefore we have to throw it all away. We have to throw away all knowledge. We have to live pretending that we don't recognize the patterns in our lives. Right. If I'm hungry and I eat food, I will stop being hungry. Do I have to reject that because that is a literalist thing to do? I wanna hear what is the alternative. Otherwise, I'm gonna be pissed. So I'm probably gonna be pissed, aren't I? All right. So the fourth. Let's finish the fourth before lunch. I mean, it's lunchtime, but I'm curious about the fourth. We can probably go through it, can we? Oh, actually, no, that'll take too long. It is lunchtime. I am curious. So, yeah, thanks for hanging out today. I had a good time. Have a good one, and see you next time. Cheers.